This is the Freedom Ring.
Well, if you're new to the show, we've established a kind of a daily tradition that we start the show off with something positive. Just because the world needs more positivity in it, and we believe that people need to get back to God. And there's these memes that always get shot to us, and I don't think it's a bad way to, especially because of where the world is and where the lack of morals and stuff. These memes and these messages are always, made to feel good. And if you keep God front and center, like he should be, I believe everyone has a better day and a better life, and hopefully we can help steer you in the right direction if you're if you're in a little funk, if you're in a little rut. By the way, welcome to the Freedom Ring. I'm Matt Toledo. That is Bill Spry. We'll get to our guest in just a second, but when we started the show, we wanted to make sure that we had a positive impact, and this is what we do. Right? A positive mind towards everything will give you a happier life. A positive mind towards everything will give you a happier life. And if you keep God involved in your day and you say a prayer first thing in the morning, maybe you squeeze one out at lunch or at the traffic stop, on your way home, just doesn't have to be a big 60-minute sermon or anything like that. Just a little chat with God. And it seems like positivity just finds its way into your life.
Kind of guides your day for you.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in our lives that they dwell on the negative, and it seems like that's what they attract.
Well, not to mention there's so much negative in this world now.
Right.
We need God in our lives more than ever.
And keep God in your life. Begin your day with a prayer. It's pretty simple, and it just seems everything turns better. I don't know.
It does.
We're not sermons, or we're not pastors, we're not priests, we're not qualified for that, but we have both found that when there's ruts in our life and we lean on God a little bit more, that's when things start to turn around. And
absolutely,
consider where the world is right now. We feel that it's our duty to just remind people on that, and we decided to start the show that way.
Absolutely.
So, welcome to the show. Our guest today is, man, look at this resume. She's a retired lieutenant colonel for the U.S. Air Force. She's a 21-year veteran who served in the Gulf War in Sarajevo. She's a nurse practitioner with experience in occupational medicine research and was a part of Operation Warp Speed. Now, that's a phrase that I misunderstood until we recently talked, and she educated me on that, and we'll get to that in a second. Because when I first heard of Operation Warp Speed, it had a negative connotation. I thought everything was just being forced at us at once, and she'll explain in just a second. She is pro-Second Amendment and a small business advocate, just to name a few. She is Ohio State Representative Jennifer Gross from House District 52. Good morning, Jennifer. Are you there?
Good morning, Matt. I'm here.
Thanks for joining us. Now, is it true that Donald Trump is taking back to office next week? Please say yes.
We do know that conspiracies do come true, but I'm not sure about that one.
Darn it. I was hoping that you'd give us some inside intel there.
I'm still stuck on the fact that you guys are saying pray while you're in traffic, because some of us need to pray a little more than others when we're over the speed limit. So anyway.
That's the whole goal, is not to exceed the speed limit. But so you have the military back. What's going on with our military? I mean, should we is World War III looming, or is it more fear brought on by the media?
Like every place in our society, there are fabulous people and there are people that are not so fabulous. So our military is no different, but I still choose to believe that our military, the people who choose to serve our nation in the military, are by and large those who love our country, maybe even more than most, because they take their bodies and they sign their lives on the dotted line and offer to give up and into and including their entire lives, literally, to death. And though there are a lot of us who say we would do that, we don't actually sign on the dotted line. I think that there's a special kind of person that is willing to take that final step to defend the Constitution of the United States of America against enemies, both foreign and domestic.
I've said that my entire life.
Yeah, and I mean, like, certainly there are people who only do it to get their education, or they only do it to try to get whatever, But by and large, that's not the majority. So our military, I think, is in great shape. I would say, though, that when you have a strong leader like President Donald Trump, the morale of the military is far better. I was in the military when Clinton was president, and also the day Bush became president. And I can tell you there was like a light switch, the morale changed. When you have someone at the helm that actually is a leader who really has your best interests at heart.
Well, you could see it in the pictures last week that leaked in the media when Biden went and visited our troops, and they're just eyeballing him. I don't even think they stood when he entered the room.
Yeah, I saw the one when he was seated at the table and two guys were looking back. I can already see their officers in charge going, "You don't do that," because we may not respect the individual at the helm of a particular leadership position, but we are taught in the military to respect that position.
Right.
So you may clap when the president comes in or the governor or whatever, but you're actually showing respect for the title or the position, not necessarily the individual.
Well, you had mentioned morale, and it was interesting as you were right before you started talking about morale. I was writing that down. Is the military morale low right now with the advent of the injections and all the things going on in this country?
Well, and I'm sure that I would have brothers and sisters in arms who will debate this with me, but when we sign on the line, we are required to get these shots, right? So when I was in the military, we had to do the anthrax series, and I get some side effects on a regular basis that I believe are from that. And I got all 5, and I believed, and this is what I would tell you, the majority of the military believes, that our nation, and it's our responsibility as citizens, really, to say, you're putting your life on the line, we will fight for you here and for your freedom. They believed that our government would do the best for them, like I did when I was worldwide qualified, meaning I was an air crew, so we had to be ready to go anywhere in the world. And so they said, you have to get the anthrax series. Well, a year and a half after that, they no longer required it. So I was in that group that got it, but I got every one, and I'm telling you guys, they were 5, and it was every other shoulder, every other month, and you still had a welt, on the arm that you got the month before, and you got the other one on the other arm, and then you rotated 2 months later to the other arm. So it was really, but I believed, and I believe they believe, that the government has their best interest at heart. It is our job, I believe, as citizens to say, you know what, I'm not so sure about this one, and I'm going to fight. And Liberty Counsel and an attorney here in Ohio named Tom Wren has testified for the military specifically, and we now know factually through the leaked documents through the DoD or DARPA, that there are some real horrendous side effects, and so we're seeing some good movement there, but that doesn't change that a large majority were required already to get the shot.
Now that you've been on both sides of the political aisle, average person like us, and then now that you're in politics, do you still believe that the government has our best interests at heart? And is that what triggered you to get into politics, is to kind of force the fact that maybe they should?
To be honest with you, really honest, it is easier to be part of the military because we have a common goal to protect the Constitution of the United States. So no matter what letter is behind your name, we're working together. We are focused on one cause, one goal. Government, by and large, not always, depending on who's leading. I mean, we have a fabulous leader that we call leading from behind in Florida, Ron DeSantis.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And I would argue that he's leading our nation from behind with fabulous policy, whereas our government, our president is largely incompetent And whether you want to go into the mental part or his policies or his cabinet or whatever. But back to what you were talking about as far as the military and why I went in. Yeah, I guess I would say to you that I did go into state government because I want to be really clear with your listeners. We need to understand the difference between Congress and our state government. Your state government has way more control or power or influence, impact on your daily lives than Congress does. And so if you don't know who your state representative is and you don't know who your state senator, no matter what state you're from, whether it's from fabulous senator like Wendy Rogers in Arizona or another House rep in Colorado, Tanya Van Bever, or another one, Kathy Edmonston, down in Louisiana. These are liberty fighters, and you need to know who your House reps are and your state senators are. If you do not know who they are, I promise you, and you're not on them, and you're not keeping, remember, we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And unfortunately, the people must be keeping track on, you can't just turn away and go, oh, they're doing my best. We know now that not all are working for the best interest of their constituents. They're working to the best interest of unelected bureaucrats, lobbyists. Not all lobbyists are bad, by the way. I know that's probably not going to be a popular opinion. But there are honest ones that are truly conservative lobbyists, really genuinely working toward great policy. There are others that are woke corporation lobbyists.
Which seems to be the most of them.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it seems to be most of them. The ones that we hear about anyway, the lobbyists, they seem to be the woke and the ones the masses don't necessarily agree with.
Right. But I will tell you, like you guys, you don't hang around with a bunch of left, cowering in their homes and wearing masks outside. I would venture to say those are not your people, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, we're aware of them. Yes, we're aware of them.
We see those on the motorcycles, all by themselves with their mask on while they're driving down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same for me in Columbus, since that's my state capital. It's the same for me. The lobbyists who are rude and obnoxious and pushing policy that is not conservative, it takes a while. But you can tease those out. I gravitate toward the ones. I tease them out. What is your policy? What do you believe? Because your worldview is going to affect the job you do no matter where you are. I don't care if you're a cashier at Kroger. Your outlook on life, you guys were talking, be positive. You when you are positive, when you have the hope, I have hope in Jesus Christ. So we are not to walk around like a people with no hope. And because I believe in God and this nation and that we are better than we are bad, I can't not walk in hope and push forward. Yes, we're going to deal with adversity. And I look at Sun Tzu and the art of war and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I don't want to monopolize the conversation. So, but did I come into the state government because of my military? At 21 years, and when someone asked me to run, I said, let me take a think about that, because I never intended to run for the legislature. Something that really scares me is when a young person says to me, I'm getting my degree in politics and I want to be a politician. And I'm like, yeah, I don't call myself a politician. I'm a representative, and there is a difference.
And there's the reason the main reason I voted for Trump is he wasn't a politician.
Yeah.
He was a successful businessman, and it seems like all the people that are career politicians, they go to Washington, D.C. to how they obtain it. I'm not sure. There's multiple ways that we're finding out now, but it seems like they go to Washington, D.C. to obtain what Donald Trump built on his own. And I don't know how you get a person that is in politics that makes $125,000 a year and is suddenly worth $40 million. That doesn't. The math doesn't work out there. But anyway, you're talking about lobbyists, and the ones that lean to the left seem to be rude and stuff. And I'm going to take the lobbyist out of it. Just the people that seem to lean to the left, they seem to be a little bit more rude, but yet they're always the one that are preaching coexist and accepting of all. But as soon as you make it known that you don't necessarily jive, that accept all goes right out the window, where does the hypocrisy end with that?
Right. Well, the cancel culture, right? I mean, even with this shot and the movement toward there is no treatment for COVID, or you must get the shot, that's the only way. If you spoke a different voice, if you said a different view, there's early treatment, I don't believe in this, there's only 2 months of data, they immediately, like fruit flies, were all over you, canceling you and telling you, liberalism, and I make a very big distinction between leftist and liberal.
Mm-hmm.
I have some wonderful liberal people, liberal thought, right? A liberal art. Liberal thought is free thought, right? But leftist is we have the truth, you are dumb, we will not listen to you. There is a huge difference, and that is where our Democrat Party has now gone, and that is why there will be a red wave in Ohio, and I believe nationwide. We are about to see a massive change. The problem with that is, just because you have an R behind your name does not mean you are not a Democrat. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
At least we had dinos, Democrat in name only, but we don't have those. We have rhinos.
Right.
And you get a rhino. I have a rhino in our caucus that believed at the beginning, I don't know what she believes today, but she believed that everybody in Ohio ought to have to get a vaccine to work or go to school. I mean, the COVID vaccine.
Okay, is she taking into consideration that not everyone can have that in their body?
I don't know. She stormed away that day, and we've never had another conversation about it, because I was a sub-investigator for this. And, even Prozac guys had 3 to 5 years of research, and it was an oral medication that you could take once that goes out of your body. To put something into your body that could irreparably damage your body, that had only been data collected for 2 to 3 months, the idiocy of doing something to all of our country. I mean, let's just step back, listen to the actual science, and say, what is the rush? Even as a nurse practitioner, I'm technically, I can't prescribe drugs that haven't been out for a while. That's the way it is in Ohio for nurse practitioners. But 21% of all medications that are out there, doctors write off label. I mean, they use for whatever. But that's drugs that are tried and true, and they're already approved. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm no longer a big believer in the FDA and the CDC. But
boy, you think?
Yeah, that opens a can of worms. I know.
We're finding out a lot of things ever since Trump was in office. I thank him for that, if nothing else, of awakening the country and opening our eyes to the possibility that there's a lot more going on here than what we ever thought.
Yep. All the times that he said the fake news. It took a while, didn't it?
It did.
For a long time, until finally we're like, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
They're not telling us the truth.
Yeah, you're conditioned to believe that everything that's on the box, and you're sitting there, that's just where I'm supposed to get the info. So I don't fault the people that didn't do any research before the jab was forced on everybody, because it's not that I don't fault them for it. I understand why they sat there, because we were conditioned just to believe the news. But when they started, like, the separation, everyone has to stay home and you can't go to church and you can't. I had a conversation with my wife's grandmother who lived under Mussolini and Hitler's rule in the 40s. That Mussolini and Hitler wasn't just a couple of names she read in the history book or some people she saw in a highlight reel. She actually experienced life under them. And when she said, in her very broken English, she couldn't make sense of the new cold. That's what she called it, was the new cold. I wasn't quite sure how to feel about that. But when they said you have to start separating and stay home, she goes, I've already seen this. This is history repeating itself. I don't like it, and it's going nowhere good.
Wow.
And that's when I started, let's do a little bit more investigating. And then thankfully my wife was, because of food allergies and stuff, she's already been up on vaccinations and stuff like that. So I had the benefit of being married to her and learning from her. And not everyone did, but when does it kick in that you should start questioning? You shouldn't you lived your entire life going to work not needing or going to the movie theater or going to concerts or restaurants, not needing this man-made chemical, and all of a sudden it makes sense.
And you have the president, all of a sudden, the president screaming, everybody got to get, in my
he
life.
was whispering. He was whispering.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But no, come on, man. I'm 63, and never in my life have I ever seen the outcry for citizens to get an injection by the president of the United States. It's just never happened. I've never seen anything like this before. So,
guys, wasn't it? It was like the news, fake news. But when COVID happened, all of a sudden, it was miraculous. All of a sudden, the government and the media were telling the truth. Everything they said was true.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then after fast-forwarding 2 years, up until, about a month ago, and when it was discovered that the media might not be telling the truth, as soon as Russia invades Ukraine, there's a lot of people sitting there watching the news going, they're lying, they're not telling us the truth, and blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, Putin invades, and then they're telling the truth within 12 more hours. They've they've changed their tune.
Yeah.
Yep. I think with that one particularly, something that really put my radar up, and look, we don't know all the truth. It will come out eventually, but we don't know. But when the White House brought those 31 young TikTok influencers to the White House to tell them the talking points about Ukraine. Now, when did that ever happen? Didn't something quicken in your spirit and you went, okay, now, why would our government need to bring in social media young, like, I don't know what generation we're at now, Xers, Yers, Zers, Millennial, all of them, brings 31 and has to give them talking points to propagate it through social media. What was that? You guys are media people. You guys are influencers. What was that? That was curious.
I'm going to use a vulgarity here if I really truly answer that question. So I think you can read between the lines. Complete BS.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't take me anywhere near that long to get to that point because I was questioning it about 3 weeks into this whole thing. I remember, my wife and I, when we heard about COVID, we freaked out, and I went on. I'm an early bird, so I found some guy that had worked at P&G, and he was making masks out of some other country. And I'm like, they were supposed to be the best thing that you could get. So I ordered some, and they were like $40 a piece, And I was freaking out. And 3 weeks after all this started, something clicked. And I'm like, something about this feels very nefarious. And I took my mask off and never put another one on.
Yep.
And and just started taking the vitamin D, and I'm not allowed to talk about this, but yeah, vitamin D and zinc and
fresh air, maybe
fresh air.
A walk in the park.
Yeah.
What a novel concept, fresh air.
How about a bike ride? Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a nurse practitioner. I mean, when you're listening to the government telling us there's only one way, like Fauci, just the jab is the only way, and they're ignoring all the other ways to take care of your body.
Yeah.
What was your first? Where did you go with that?
Well, that's a great question. Because I've been military, remember that for 21 years, we train and we train and we train. Why? Because then our training kicks in and we go to rote memory and we train. That's why we're so good. We keep training. My brain, because I was seeing patients, all this I went to, I probably shouldn't say this, but and I didn't tell anybody at the time because I thought they're going to think I'm a whack job. And I'm sure I'm not the only military member who went here. But I immediately thought biological weapon. Maybe I wasn't right. Maybe it wasn't really a bioweapon. But I immediately went there and I started doing the research. I got scared because how do I protect myself? How do I know? So I assumed that. I walk in. We don't have the PPE, and my employer had nothing for us. We had surgical masks. That was it. And I knew that if it was really bad, that I needed something better. And so I started doing research because that's what I love. I'm a nerd for the data. Started looking at Chinese studies, started finding, and like you guys, at about 6 weeks, I started looking around. I mean, our governor in Ohio was telling, and the woman he hired, there's going to be 1 million Ohioans. 1 of every 10 is going to die, and that wasn't happening.
Right.
And I started seeing fear everywhere. And because I'm a Christian, I don't believe that fearing everything is the way. God doesn't say fear everything. He says fear not. Fear not. And so I began going, okay, wherever there's fear, I'm not going to feed that, because remember, the dog that you feed grows. And that's what I think we're seeing now. The people that bought into the fear over and over, and they're paralyzed by the fear. And that's not who we are as Americans. So I began, like you, I would wear a mask, and people would get really close to me. They weren't, and I was still a little bit fearful, right? So then I tried it. I went to another store for my dad. He was a picky eater, and he wanted something from one store and one from another. So the next store, very same day, I didn't wear a mask, and everybody stayed away from me. And I thought, that really works, because at this point, I don't know, right? And so I stopped wearing a mask by and large, and I stopped also frequenting organizations and businesses that required masks, because they have a choice and I have a choice, and I stopped. I stopped shopping at places that required them. I didn't wear them, and I tried the best I could. Now, if I had a friend who's like, we're going to so-and-so, and we got to go, and I'm like, this is against my beliefs, but you're my friend, so I'll do it.
Now, being from the medical field, did you ever find a more polite virus to where it allows you to eat at a restaurant without bothering you, and it only bothers you in the waiting area?
I mean, guys, in Ohio, I don't know, all of your listeners are all over the country, but in Ohio, if you were standing, you had to wear a mask.
Right.
If you were seated, you didn't have to.
If you were seated 7 feet away, you didn't have to wear it.
At what point does your critical thinking kick in? I mean, come on.
I know, and even now, I was driving through Columbus yesterday, and there's people walking alone with a mask, and I'm like, guys, you need to get fresh air. In flight, I was a flight nurse in the military. When you would get nauseated or something on the flight, we were refueling or doing whatever, you would go up and suck some green gas, which is oxygen. Oxygen is good. It heals. It brings oxygen to your cells. It heals a cut you've got. It makes you feel better. It increases when you drink plenty of water, the water helps deliver oxygen to your cells. Green gas is good. And so when you're blocking that, it's not wise.
Until they change the definition of it.
Right. Absolutely.
Weren't you going to ask that, Bill?
I was going to talk about the definition, and it's like, okay, so my understanding now, since they changed the definition of vaccine, it means anything that doesn't necessarily cure but will help the outcome. So in other words, if I take an aspirin, that's now a vaccine, right?
By definition, if that's the definition, then you would be correct.
I mean, if you take a throat lozenge, that's a vaccine.
Right.
I mean, you drink a glass of milk, that's a vaccine. You put a little lotion on your hands. It's just out of sight. It's just so insane.
They're talking about technology that they put it in our food. So you could see the loss of autonomy and the loss of independent choice, coercion, and now the next step is, sorry, we didn't have to tell you that your ground beef that you bought at the grocery store had that vaccine in it, but you no longer have the right to choose anyway. So too bad. We don't have to tell you. We don't have to tell you what you buy. This is why you need to currently be supporting your farmers, support your local farmers, support your CSA, because whole food is always better anyway. And, my European friends, I have a great friend who flies with Lufthansa, 36 years in Germany, and she comes over to the United States. She's like, Jen, and she insists on all organic food when she comes over here. She said, I don't know what you guys have in your food, but it does not even taste as good.
Really?
So and in Norway they have a socialized medicine, and they require, you can't get 80-20 beef in Norway. You have to eat 93-7. You have to have low-fat beef. That's socialized medicine. So as we move into less choice, where are we going to go with that? Where are we going to go with that? You're going to have to get some kind of implant in your body to keep your medical records, and your employer's going to say, well, in order to get your benefits, you've got to put this implant. You can pay extra in your premium if you don't want to get the implant, because our company is requiring that, and we have a contract with ABC Insurance, and so therefore, our policy is that you get this implant because it's easier for us, and they're giving us a discount. You can pay extra, like they've done. There are banks, there are grocery stores that are requiring people to pay higher premiums because they didn't get the shot. And I'm sorry, but I'm a visionary, and I'm not necessarily. I don't know what you want to call a conspiracy theorist anymore, because the truth is a lot of things that people call a conspiracy have become true.
Exactly.
Conspiracies are not necessarily false, but what I'm seeing is a loss of freedom. Mandates and freedom cannot exist in the same sentence. And so people say there's a freedom thing coming up, a freedom rally, like it's no longer just about the vaccine. I'm like, yeah, but the slippery slope began, back to your comments about the mask. Oh, Jen, you're being ridiculous. It's the slippery slope theory. Well, we went from forced masking to coercion and getting a vaccine, or you could not work. Matt, you are very, I don't know if I'm allowed to speak about that, but, some people are very aware of the cost that it cost them. They had to quit their jobs. They had to, a father had to either get the shot to feed his children, and a mother too, a single mom. I know so many stories.
It's the reason I walked away from my radio career. They tried, they mandated the shot, the company I was working for, and it just didn't feel right. And so I figured, since I still have a microphone in front of my face, I'm going to use it for a different reason. But I do want to change gears, because we are talking to Ohio State Representative Jennifer Gross from the House District 52. She is pro-Second Amendment. Considering how screwed up things are, should everyone have at least one gun in their house? Because, I think you have a pretty good example of maybe why the answer of that should be yes.
Yeah, one word: Ukraine. I mean, the Ukrainian people had no self-defense. They weren't allowed to have weapons. And as soon as the invasion by Russia occurred, they started giving them out to all the citizens, but nobody had ever touched a gun. They weren't, well, not nobody, but I mean, a large majority, even a 16, 18-year-old, now the 16, 18-year-olds are fighting with weapons to try to save their country, and they had never touched a weapon. The Second Amendment is very clear. The Second Amendment shall not be infringed, and it is to protect Americans against a tyrannical government. You want to shoot deer, shoot deer. Don't shoot too many. Shoot the ones that you need to feed your family. Don't do it just for quote-unquote sport, right? Yeah, that's why we have to have tags and stuff. But, I mean, absolutely. In my family, we were talking about this a little earlier, Matt, but, my house, we no longer have, like, the diamond. I like diamonds, don't get me wrong. And gold anniversary or whatever. We have the weapon anniversary, the bullet anniversary. And in my family,
that's cool.
We stuff stockings with an extra 50 rounds or 100 rounds. Like my
I love you.
Christmas stocking. my husband's Christmas stocking gets a little bit of 9mm fuel.
And I did remind her. I said, when you stuff these stockings with bullets, make sure the stocking isn't hanging over the fireplace.
Put it on, right? Right.
Put it along the staircase.
Like, that's a good point. Good point, Matt. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people, guns bad. It isn't the gun.
It's the person.
Your Second Amendment freedom is not to haul off and shoot your neighbor.
Right.
Your Second Amendment freedom is to protect you against the tyrannical government and protect your home, your domicile. And that's why we have it. That's why it's there. You have no history. Those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. Know why it's there. Study our history.
And the fact that there's members of our government that want to take them away, that should scare the living crap out. Even people that aren't, they're anti-gun. The fact that they want to take them, I shouldn't say anti-gun, but are nervous around guns.
Yeah.
The fact that your government wants to take away that privilege from you.
Right.
Oh, my
Right.
God.
I mean, I know you guys probably don't go around brandishing your guns. Look, I got a gun, and you're like dropping it.
Any responsible gun owner doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And criminals are the ones that kill people with guns.
Right. We have a people problem. We don't have a gun problem. We have a moron problem. We have a criminal problem. The problems are because my dad, from my birth until I moved out at 22, 23, my dad had a 44 Winchester in his underwear drawer that never moved. I never saw it get up and walk out of the house and shoot people.
That's right.
Right? It doesn't move. If the idiot that owns it isn't an idiot, if it's just a responsible person, it doesn't harm anybody.
That's right. I forget the statistics, but we have, I think we have 4 times as many murders and deaths by knife. It isn't guns. And it's easy. That's why when people say, oh, the AR, it's Armalite. It's not, it isn't, AR is bad, It's really fascinating. There's you guys probably know this because you are, you guys influence, you're influencers, but there's a theory, it's called ossification. And in medical, when your bones ossify, when you have a broken bone, that break ossifies, and that's how it heals. You get this thickness there. Well, the media does the same thing. If you keep saying the same message over and over and over, usually 5 times, when the people hear it, which like the fear of COVID, the fear.
Mm-hmm.
Once people hear the same message 5 times, as in the same case with the AR-15, when you keep hearing the same thing, bad, people start repeating it, even though they don't understand even where it even began. And it was the same with COVID, and it's the same with the AR. When we keep repeating, so the bad stuff, people keep repeating it. Same with a Lancet study regarding ivermectin. I think it was ivermectin. So this turned out to be a bad study, but by the time it had already gone out, 50% of the medical community already believed the Lancet study was true. Once it had been ossified in the medical community, people stopped being willing to even look at it, and then the article was pulled as fake and false. JAMA and Lancet, 2 great organizations that we learned to trust in healthcare, pulled all that information, but it was too late. The theory, the word had already been ossified. It had already become true to a large majority of the medical community. So,
and they know that. It's obvious something is going on here. It's very obvious to me. And they know all the tricks, how to convince people. For me, it didn't make me fearful. It made me angry.
Well, Bill, you're just paranoid, man.
I know, Dad, burn it.
Paranoid, angry, the left is going to call you anything
Right.
but the truth.
Right. Yeah. Ohio State Representative Jennifer Gross from the House District 52. She is also a small business advocate. Is Biden the worst thing ever to happen for our small business owners?
Biden in shutting down our pipeline and harming the remember that gas, oil, fuel, it affects everything. Everything. Your travel, it's going to affect your groceries. It's going to affect the cost of buses taking children to school. All of it. So yes, ultimately, the drive to push us toward electric vehicles and things like that. But I would also say governors, remember, the difference between governors who shut down their states and a governor like Ron DeSantis who opened up the economy of Florida, I believe, has grown 200, maybe even more percent, because Ron DeSantis took his economy and turned it upside down by allowing the people to be free. I would ask all your listeners, everybody knows right now someone, if it wasn't you, it was someone went to Florida during the last 2 years.
Oh,
Why?
definitely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's because people were free. The president, we know that the president is cognitively defective.
Right.
There's something going on with our president. So we have to remember that the president's not king. It's also his cabinet. So he is surrounded by the Buttigieg people of the world and all that. These people are all far leftists pushing this agenda. So we can think that we're going to get rid of Biden and get Kamala Harris, which arguably would be worse.
Yeah.
And then if we don't have her, we have Pelosi.
Oh.
I mean, all of them are terrible.
The nightmare
So
gets
the only
worse.
way- we've got to change. We've got to get state legislatures that have the kahunas. Sorry, I don't know if that's vulgar. The kahunas to be able to stand against a government that is bearing down with unfunded mandates and pushing us. We've got to have the strength to say absolutely not. And then we've got to turn the Congress over in this election, 2022, and we've got to move. But we also have to elect actual conservatives, not rhino Republicans that are going to fall right in line, lockstep, go along to get along. But I would caution everybody, we can't just vote, like you were saying about Trump. Trump not only was a great, astute businessman, but he was also very smart. You can't just go, well, I'm going to vote for anybody because he's a non-politician. We have a situation going on here in Ohio, and I'm like, yeah, but you have to really try the person. If they can't manage their own finances and they can't manage the small things, they are not going to be able to manage an $80 billion Ohio budget. So.
Well, I've said this for years. The first time I was able to actually vote for president, I voted for Ross Perot. And the reason, and everyone made fun of the guy, but at the time we were in Desert Storm. He had a military background, a quite successful one. He was also a multi-billionaire. We started the deficit with George Bush Sr., so I knew George Sr. wasn't really beneficial for the country. I didn't know enough about this new guy, Billy Clinton, so I went for the guy that I don't know, just stood to reason that we'd go with him, and obviously he disappeared, and that was shady as hell, the way he just kind of vanished. But that's I won't call myself a Republican. I won't call myself, definitely won't call myself a Democrat, but I do have conservative views. I do lean right. I will acknowledge people on the left do make some sense. There's always, it's good to debate. It's good to hear both sides. I don't know why you can't absorb both sides and then come to your own conclusion. That's kind of where I'm at. But I believe Washington, D.C., it's the largest, mafia ring, if you want to say mafia, just organized crime. So that's why I won't marry myself to the word Republican, although I do lean right. I just think it's so twisted and in the dirt right now that it's absolutely insane.
Well, it feels like it's just one party, honestly. It just seems like it's one party with two names.
And like that movie, the one I was talking about earlier this week, it came out in 2007, Mark Wahlberg, it's called Shooter. There's a scene where a politician there says, listen, there is no Republican or Democrat. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, I'm not talking about it in your position, Jennifer. I'm talking about when we go to Washington, D.C., and we get into the swamp. It just seems things at that level are completely different.
Yeah.
May I stop you?
Please.
Where does the swamp come from? Where do you think the swamp come from? Do you think they go to D.C. and become the swamp? No, sirs. No, sirs. Guys, the swamp gets sent from every state capital, every legislature. The swamp goes back into a bigger swamp. That is why.
See, I didn't want to associate you with the swamp because I like you.
Yes.
I didn't want to associate you there.
So you look to see the ones that, like me, I was removed from health committee. I'm the only health care provider in Ohio, in the Republican legislature, in the majority of the caucus. Yet my leadership removed me from health committee by the request, most likely, of the guy in charge of health committee. So when that kind of stuff happens, the people have to go, what's going on? And I'm the only healthcare provider, the only person who is involved in Operation Warp Speed in both parties in our Ohio House chamber, and the Senate. Nobody else was. And yet I was removed from health committee. You have to start asking yourself why. Why? Do you think it's because I'm so obnoxious? If I am obnoxious, am I obnoxious for the people or against the people? I carried the strongest medical freedom bill in Ohio. That is why I was removed from the health committee.
Jennifer,
Now,
you just have to learn how to follow people when they tell you what to do. Fall in line now. Come on.
That's why we like her.
So usually people like me are taken out.
Yeah.
And I've been told, we're going to take you out. And you know what? If I'm taken out, guys, it is what it is. I'm going to keep standing for the people because I'm not a career politician. And I'm going to keep standing until I can't stand anymore, because I feel like, as a legislator, it is not your job to go along to get along. It is your job to stand what? For your oath. And what was your oath? To support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, and in my case, the Constitution of Ohio. But as a military member, my final line in there, I never resigned, and that says, against enemies, both foreign and domestic. If you are fighting against the liberties of my constituents, then you are not my friend. So if you're not my friend, then you are my enemy, because you cannot fight against the liberty of the constituents that voted me in office to defend them. It is my job above all else. I live by a scripture, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Not the freedom to haul off and shoot your neighbor with your Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
The freedom to walk and live as an American, to be what we are, the boldness, the brashness. My county is known to be rebels in a sense in Ohio, but I would argue that we all need to be a little more DeSantis-like. So.
Jennifer, we thank you so much. We had planned out 15 minutes for this interview, and I knew it was going to go longer because it's just going to become a conversation. I love when interviews are no longer interviews and they're just conversations.
Conversations, yeah.
And you learn about somebody is cool and loves this country. Ohio State Representative Jennifer Gross from the House District 52, up for re-election, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right now we don't know. I may be District 45, which I find funny since that was President Trump's number.
That's a good sign.
God did everything in redistricting, everything. And so if I get to be 45, then I'll salute smartly, and we'll keep moving.
That's
keep standing
awesome.
for liberty, just like you guys.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll hope to have you on again soon. Good luck with the election, the re-election, I should say. And again, thank you for your service too.
Yeah.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel from the U.S. Air Force. I salute you.
I want to thank you for your service, both in the military and out of the military.
Thank you. Am I allowed to give my website?
Absolutely.
Anybody listening?
Absolutely.
So if they want to get in touch with me, my website is jennifer4rep.com. So that's FORREP.com. And it's my honor to be here with you guys. Thank you for the opportunity.
Not a problem at all.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Good luck. God bless. We'll chat with you soon, okay?
All right. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Guys.
She
take care.
An awesome lady.
Absolutely.
She is so cool. We'll probably need to disconnect that over there before we start getting from the phone. But, yeah, that is Ohio State Representative Jennifer Gross. Look her up. Even if you're not in Ohio, she's a good lady to follow. And if you are here in the greater Cincinnati area, try to get her reelected. Okay, so another story that broke yesterday. Bruce Willis is taking a break from acting as he battles aphasia. This is a condition that affects the ability to communicate. It's impacting his cognitive abilities, and according to the Mayo Clinic, aphasia can affect the person's ability to speak, write, and understand language, both verbal and written. It typically occurs suddenly after a stroke or a head injury, but can also come on gradually from a slow-growing brain tumor or a disease that causes progressive permanent damage. Now, we said earlier on the other show, both huge fans of Bruce Willis. Wish him nothing but the best. I hope he can get past this, because apparently you can. And he's one of those few guys in Hollywood. I like to shake his hand and just have a beer with him. He just seems like a cool, down-to-earth dude. But unfortunately, aphasia also happens to be a side effect from the COVID jab. So I heard that, and I went to the NIH's National Library of Medicine, and there is a case listed among many where aphasia occurred 7 days after a second dose. We might want to unplug that. After a second dose of the mRNA-based SARS-CoV-2 vaccine. This you got to understand when they took the Pfizer research and they sealed it for 75 years. They ordered it sealed for 75 years. That should raise suspicion.
I know.
Well, now that it's being leaked, a few thousand pages a month or something like that.
It's 5,000, I think, they've been ordered to release.
Okay, it's being made available. Use this little device for other things other than Wordle, okay? Even if you think what we're talking about with the vaccine is just complete BS, it's right here. It's no longer like she was talking about with conspiracies. It's no longer a conspiracy. They rushed this into everybody's veins, and unfortunately, too many people said yes. Am I saying this is what Bruce Willis did and got the jab? I don't know. I'm just telling the people that are listening to this podcast that it's a possibility and it's on Pfizer's list.
It needs to be discussed.
Though rare.
If it was the cause, people need to know about that,
right,
which might prevent further problems.
And isn't it sad that a couple of tools like you and I, we're the ones conveying this information? I'm not patting ourselves on the back, but just sheer interest.
There's a lot of truthers, but what makes us kind of unique, I think, is that we've got the FM radio show before we go live on video, and we're doing it on FM. I mean, I've never heard of any other radio station anywhere, legitimate radio station, that actually went on the air and started talking about these things.
And he owns the radio station, so there's a little bit of bias there. No, just kidding. I'm kidding. No, when I'm driving in this morning, they're still talking about Will Smith and Chris Rock and the slap heard around the world. You don't think this is
more important?
A little bit more important? Yeah. We're talking about humans' lives here.
I know.
Though rare, neurological side effects of SARS-CoV-2 vaccinations are increasingly reported, which means there's an uptick since it all that started. It's been increased. Even if the first dosage goes uncomplicated, second dose may be complicated by severe adverse reactions, as in the following case. Now, this is a case that, again, you can go to the NIH National Library of Medicine and read this for yourself. This case involves a 52-year-old male. He developed sudden onset reading difficulty and aphasia 7 days after the second dose of the mRNA-based SARS-CoV-2 vaccine. He had a previous history of... I'm going to butcher all this medical terms. It was so much easier to be in rock radio saying Pearl Jam or this is War Pigs from Black Sabbath. I can say that. These words I'm just going to butcher.
Yeah.
Myocardial infarction. Got past that. That's actually a heart attack. Arterial hypertension. That's high blood pressure. Hyperlipidemia. That's abnormally high levels of fat or lipids in the blood. This guy also had nephrolithiasis.
You're right.
Here's Even Flow from Pearl Jam. I can do that all day. Those are kidney stones. Blood pressure was slightly elevated on admission. Blood tests revealed mildly elevated D-dimer. That's an indicator for blood clots. Pre-diabetes and hyperuricemia. High levels of uric acid. Cerebral magnetic resonance imaging revealed in intercerebral bleeding. We're going to call that ICB, okay? In the left temporal lobe. Aphasia resolved almost completely within a few days. Okay, so it sounds like it went away. Blood pressure values were normal throughout hospitalization. Whether there was a causal relation between the ICB and the vaccination remains speculative, but cannot be definitely excluded. Conclusion: a second dose of SARS-CoV-2 vaccination may be followed by ICB, though the physiology. Sorry. What did you laugh laughing at me over there. Thank you. I appreciate that. The pathophysiology of ICB remains unexplained. A causal relation between ICB and the vaccination cannot be excluded. Risk factors for ICB should be carefully monitored in patients undergoing the COVID vax. And isn't it funny that Fauci, I don't think he ever said that, the many times he was in front of a live mic or a camera?
Well, I can't even imagine that. He wouldn't say it.
Did your employer tell you that before they mandated it, before you came back to work?
Did our government tell us this before they mandated?
What about Joe Biden when he was whispering awkwardly into the microphone? Hey, man, it's safe and it's free. Come on, go get it.
$1 million college tuition.
Never heard any of this.
No.
But you're hearing it from us.
All you heard was that it was safe and effective.
Right.
Yeah.
But they locked it up for 75 years. From the NA. Oh, my God. This is just a horrific day for speaking.
You're doing fine for your second day.
NIH. Second day of speaking. Thank you. Yeah. NIH, National Library of Medicine. Look it up. That is serious stuff. Let's see. We got time for one more. From Natural News, the establishment is running into serious problems trying to explain the skyrocketing rates of cardiovascular events that are occurring ever since were unleashed on the world. Corporate-controlled media outlets, including some conservative ones, are blaming everything from fluctuating weather patterns.
It rained yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's why you got it. That's...
We used to sneeze when it rained, but now it's like it's a heart attack.
Yeah, now you get a heart attack. In fact, it's raining in the greater Cincinnati area right now.
Oh,
we might have one.
Yeah.
Daylight savings time.
Oh,
now
my
causes
gosh.
heart attack. You see where this is going?
And they just made that permanent, so you know. In fact, I even saw a story somewhere that talked about because they were making it permanent, it could risk all kinds of health or cause all kinds of health issues. They're playing up to it.
So if you're thinking we're conspiracy theorists, just pay attention to this. Oh, listen with an open mind. Okay?
Open mind.
He just said that who exactly ixnayed the daylight savings time? Was it the government?
It was the government.
States
yeah.
Okay.
I believe it was a vote.
Here's the other one. Also causing heart attacks. All right. This is the increasing number of heart attacks. Fluctuating weather patterns, daylight savings time. Watching too much television. Actually, if you're watching mainstream media, that might cause a heart attack.
No doubt.
And here's the kicker. Even having too much sex.
Oh, my gosh. Don't make babies. Now, we got to reduce the population.
Let's do away with the family.
Yeah.
I'm weird. I know. I'm weird. I'm weird for saying this. I get it.
You've been hanging around me too long, man.
Well, no. I've been weird since, third grade they started calling me weird. I'm used to it. I'm okay with it, actually.
But these conspiracies, I mean, come on.
You're having heart attacks because of too much sex, so stop. Stop procreating, if we go a little further. Is that what we're looking at?
Well, I had some other things I might say, but I won't.
Suddenly, they say all the normal things that people have been doing forever are magically causing otherwise healthy people to suffer a heart attack or stroke. It's not this. No. Come on. It's not that. It's daylight savings time. We sprang forward, man. And, when 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday became 7 o'clock, I went, oh, and I fell over.
It's like, it's so lame.
And then my wife, oh, honey, it's all good. We went upstairs and made love, and I had another one.
That's when you had to have the bypass, right?
And then it started raining when I came home, and I had another one. Who's believing this, man?
Oh, man. What are the trolls going to say about this?
Oh, yeah. We already have trolls, don't we?
Yeah.
That's what are we, 2 weeks in? Our 2-week anniversary was yesterday. Yeah. We've already got trolls?
Yeah.
High five, brother.
Well, we're growing.
Yes.
Thank you, trolls.
Yeah. Make sure you share, by the way.
Yeah.
Trolls or non-trolls, share. The experts want to assure the peasants, that would be you and me, Bill.
Of course, I heard Pelosi say that.
Yeah, she did say that.
She did say that.
God, you're completely right.
Yeah.
Oh, my husband eats at 8 o'clock. I eat at 5:30. You know, like the peasants. As she was having her hair blown out.
It's our feed time. Ooh.
Where was I? Like the peasants, the unprecedented increase in heart attacks, even in young people, because that's always happened, who historically don't suffer from them, has nothing to do with the vaccines produced by the same pharmaceutical entities that coincidentally fund their research work. That is according to the Daily Bell. And on its website, the American Heart Association reveals the following. We conclude that the mRNA vaccines dramatically increase inflammation on the endothelium and I got through that one pretty good. Endothelium and T-cell infiltration of cardiac muscle and may account for the observations of increased thrombosis, cardiomyopathy, and other vascular events following vaccination. So that's according to the American Heart Association, not these two whack jobs talking to you right now.
We're just discussing it.
And everyone should be.
Exactly.
The principle at play here is akin to the legal concept called plausible deniability. Most often, plausible deniability refers to members of high-ranking governments or similarly large, complex entities creating, through various machinations, a mirage of ignorance to protect themselves from liability for criminal or unethical behavior that they actually sanctioned. The corporate-controlled media is doing the exact same thing by presenting ridiculous and highly unlikely scenarios by trying to explain all of the injuries and deaths that are spreading like a virus among the fully vaccinated. If only it could have been avoided by letting you in on the Pfizer documents. You know what I mean? But no, they ordered them shut.
They didn't want us to see what was going on.
But they're coming out slowly.
But, I mean, if they showed us, then we wouldn't opt to get the vax, right?
And then Fauci would have been out of a gig a long time ago.
No, he had a lot of other things going on, like killing puppies and stuff, you know.
I don't know. I can't take much more today. It's raining and I'm feeling chest palpitations. Isn't this how yesterday's show ended? Chest palpitations.
I'm going to bring a violin in here tomorrow.
Woo! I thought working at the cabinet shop was rough years ago. Lifting all those kitchens and stuff like that. Thanks again to Ohio State Representative Jennifer Gross.
It was good talking to her. She was awesome.
Awesome lady, up for re-election for House District 52, but it could become 45 because of redistricting.
Well, because Trump's coming back, I think.
I was hoping she was going to answer that first question with a hell yeah!
Yeah. It's a Freedom Ring. We are at the Freedom Ring Show. Let me back up. Drop the word the. It's freedomringshow.com. We've got all of our links there to all of our channels. And in fact, we just updated that website yesterday. You can catch our podcast 9 until 10 on ClassXradio.com. Subscribe, like, and share, please. We want to get the word out about this show and make a career of it. That's what our goal is.
Serious information delivered by a couple of morons having fun with it, but serious information nonetheless. And
trying to make sense of it all.
And hopefully a little bit of inspiration, too, from the guy upstairs that we need more of in not only our lives, but in the world.
We're on Rumble, BitChute, YouTube. We have a Facebook group at the Freedom Ring. We also have a Facebook page at Freedom Ring. We're on Gab.com. Just click that groups button and search for the Freedom Ring.
I envision someone trying to write all this down. He just, slow down! Throwing his pen at the screen.
Well, luckily we got a pause button now, right?
Right.
And a reverse rewind. We're also, our email, freedomringshow@gmail.com. We always love hearing from our viewers. Thank you, folks, for tuning in today. We do very much appreciate it.
Have a good one. Be good to each other. Talk to you tomorrow. Later.